Tech for aerodynamics.
I'm looking at the way animals behave in an undisturbed way.
Tech for robots.
There are a lot of different functionality that can be integrated to the Miller robot system.
Tech for energy.
We're talking about keeping our same way of life, but doing it in a more sustainable way.
This is Tech for good.
Join me as we meet the minds behind the technologies inspired by the intelligent systems of nature.
Tech for Good, Saturday on CNN in association with Samsung.
The world's biggest business stories from every corner of the globe. Marketplace, Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East.
Hate ignited the Holocaust. Ignorance fueled it.
A reality that must be remembered.
We witness Holocaust denial today.
Wolf Blitzer takes you inside the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. Never again. Friday on CNN.
This is CNN. More people get their news from CNN than any other news source.
One of the most important places on Earth is engulfed in flames. The Amazon rainforest is seeing its worst fires in decades. Some blame the government and deforestation. Bolsonaro's government blames natural events and the indigenous people even. This pitched battle comes to life in a new documentary, The Territory. It profiles one indigenous community's fight to protect their land from settlers and farmers. Here's a clip from the trailer.
O que eu fico revoltado é que a gente ainda é considerado bandido, pessoas que atrapalham o país, entendeu?
Desce no copo, vai estar ali. Eu vou estar ali, eu acho. Vai estar ali.
I sat down with Bitate Eruwaru, the indigenous leader featured in the film, and director Alex Pritz. We discussed filming this struggle that has turned deadly deep in the Amazon. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Bitate, I want to start with you and ask you why you opened up your life to show people what is happening and expose who you are and where you are.
It was a long conversation with Alex and his team. We talked a lot. We had to talk to everyone in the entire community. The elders were a little wary of the team. In our territory, a number of journalists and filmmakers have come through, and nobody really showed what was actually happening. No one was able to see the real repercussions. We talked about how we wanted to show our lives, to show what's happening within our territory, and Alex and Will and the entire team really embraced the cause. I say now they're part of our family, our Uruewawao family. It was great to have them working with us.
Alex, can you explain to people who are not familiar with this what is going on in the Amazon?
Since the Portuguese arrived in Brazil, and then, moving through the military dictatorship period in Brazil, there's been a push into the Amazon, and the government has encouraged farmers and settlers to move into the Amazon, to chop down the forest, and to turn this wilderness into private property. And so that encouragement from the government has led up until today. And you see really clearly, even if you look at the map of Brazil and South America from coast to coast, you can see very clearly where indigenous territory is, because that's where the last intact forest remains. The Uruguay territory is 7,000 square miles of old growth rainforest surrounded by farms that have no forest cover left whatsoever. And so it's a war on nature, it's a war on the people that are defending the Amazon rainforest, and bringing that into the light, making that visible was the goal for us with this film.
Let's now show a clip of this documentary film called The Territory.
Alguém avisou que a gente vinha.
Nada que vai atacar ele de propósito. Entendeu? É essa que eu tô falando. Porque eu conheço muitos desses camaradas que fazem dar o tempo, vão dar embora e depois vão dar uma famada, foi embora. Aí partiu de segunda-feira pra frente, aí tem que ficar de olho de novo, porque hoje é final de semana também, né? Por enquanto não cara, tava vindo, né? Aí...
Alex, there is a real tension in this film between all the different sort of factions that are at odds with one another. Can you describe how you did that and what those tensions were that you were trying to impart to the audience?
Yeah, the motivation to reach out to these invading farmers and settlers came through early conversations with Nadinia, the activist in the film, who said, if you want to understand this conflict in its entirety and tell a story that is reflective of the reality that we're living in, you need to talk to the people that are engaged in this violence and destruction, because we are not, as environmental defenders, the source of this conflict. And so we took that as a strong mandate from her to go out and begin reaching out to these farmers and farmers associations that have set their sights on protected land, protected indigenous territory. And it was a difficult thing, morally, ethically, logistically. It became a whole new type of film covering a conflict, an active conflict on both sides. But our producing team did a great job, Will Miller and Gabriel Ushida especially, of keeping everybody safe, making sure we had strong information protocols so that we were not passing information between the two sides of the story, that we were keeping everybody safe and making this film in a responsible way.
Tell us what is happening in your life, in your community, and if you feel a great danger.
Esse governo hoje no poder brasileiro.
The current government is very anti-indigenous, and they've tried to destroy indigenous communities. They've tried to do away with indigenous people, and we are fearful. I'm here, but I'm worried about my community in the territory. My father protects one of the bases that's most affected. He's there, I'm here. I'm very concerned about my community, and I'm concerned about my daughter. I have a daughter, she's at the base, she's inside the territory, and we never know what's actually going on. We're all facing threat, we're all concerned, and we faced this even before Ari was murdered. We lost an indigenous person, he was a guardian of the territory, and he was killed. He was killed because he was protecting his territory. And then a few months after this other person was assassinated, Ari was killed. He was assassinated. We know what's happening in the territory. We're aware of the threats. We know that this is happening in the territory. At the same time, I'm quite happy to be representing my people, but we're afraid of what happened. We never know what's going to happen in Brazil. We never know what could happen from one day to the next. But we need to overcome our fears to be able to represent our people. And we're here to also confront the government, the current government in Brazil.
Alex, can you tell me about the danger in what you have so aptly called this film, The Territory? Can you tell me how you showed what the danger is to the indigenous population and to Brazil's force as well?
For us, it was just about being there when things happened. We wanted this film to feel present tense. We wanted it to feel, to convey the same level of urgency that we were understanding from Nadinia and Bitete and everybody who's living in this conflict. And so for us, that meant being there with a camera ready when Nadinia gets a phone call that somebody's kidnapped her children. It meant being there in person through all these events, sleeping in hammocks with Bitete in the Uruguau, living with Nadinia during these really critical moments to be able to convey that urgency to the rest of the world.
Alex, you spoke to some of the farmers who say, look, this is the land that we also should be able to have and cultivate. And one of the farmers said to you, I don't really believe there are people, indigenous people living there, just completely denying it. What did you think?
I thought wow, this sounds really familiar. You know, I hate to say this, but as an American, a lot of the ideologies that these invading settlers and farmers carry is the same ideology that animated the westward expansion and displacement and violence towards indigenous people in this country. This idea of manifest destiny, the idea that the land is blank, that there are no people there. That's one of the founding myths, I think, of this country, something that was carried into Brazil as a fellow colonial state. And obviously that's false. You know, there are people living in these places before, you know, colonial settlers arrive. But I think that's one of the lies that these farmers need to tell themselves, that this land is empty, this terra nullius, a blank spot on the map before they come and colonize it.
And to me, I'm going to weigh in real quick. To me, it doesn't matter whether or not there's tribal indigenous people there or not. The fact of the matter is, by them destroying the rainforest, they're basically destroying themselves. They're destroying the oxygen that the rainforest produces towards putting out into the atmosphere so that people have, you know, oxygen to breathe. So it really, I mean, it does matter about the indigenous people because they are there. They really are. And they know that they're there, but they're convincing themselves that they're not there. That way you can free their conscience, and that way they can go do whatever that they're going to do towards destroying the habitat. You know, the Bible talks about us being good stewards. We're supposed to be good stewards to the crops, good stewards to the land, good stewards to the trees, good stewards to the animals, good stewards to the sea. And whenever we're not, then everybody pays the consequences on account of it.
It was a familiar story to me as somebody who was born here in the United States.
Bitate, I want to ask you about something that was said in this film. It was really powerful. That the Amazon is not only the heart of Brazil, but the heart of the world. Why do you think that?
Então, eu acho que a Amazônia...
I believe that the Amazon is the heart of the world, because we know that where there are trees, we have life. It's a very different climate. Our way of seeing things and living is one of protection. We have a huge forest whereby we can protect the planet. We have a lot of carbon capture that happens here. With deforestation, this mass deforestation in Brazil from 2009 to now, we've seen a mass increase. We can feel it. It's palatable. We feel that the temperatures are rising in Brazil. We feel this in our territory as well. Inside our Uruguay territory, we see the mass deforestation, and this is affecting everything. The elders already feel it. They can feel this climate change. We were fishing earlier this year, a number of people from my village, including the elders, and they said, wow, the climate's changing, the temperatures are changing. There used to be so many more fish species and animal species, and we feel that there aren't as much anymore. And we see this. Our mission is to protect. Our mission is to protect the planet. We see these these human-caused fires are also increasing. We see these fires, we see deforestation, and we see the safety of the isolated indigenous people. They're no longer protected. They're not connected. They have no contact with the outside world, even with us. And there are fewer of them. The Amazon is the heart of the world because we can breathe. It allows us to breathe with our trees.
Bitate, what is your message to the world about what is happening there and what you see as the consequence of what is happening in the Amazon?
E acho que fortalecer os povos indígenas hoje.
Strengthen indigenous people, I believe, is my strongest message. The indigenous people are the front line to protect everything that needs to be protected. The rivers, the forests, the source waters, the flora, the fauna. We have a number of species of animals, trees, flora, fauna, rivers. They often start in the Amazon, and they're very important for all of Brazil. We're here to protect all of this. I'm young, I'm 22 years old, I'm here to protect my territory, I'm here to protect my world, I'm here to protect my family, and I'm here to protect my territory.
People have been killed, including journalists who have tried to tell this story before. How much danger did you feel?
What we saw happen to Don Phillips and Bruno Pereira, a journalist and an indigenous expert, is indicative of the violence that people living there are experiencing all the time. I think about that, and then I think about the uncontacted indigenous people who, people might not even know if somebody died very deep in the forest. There might not be evidence or reporting of that. And so it is a conflict. It's an active war happening in the Amazon. We certainly felt it. I would get photos of me sent to me from numbers I didn't recognize. There's always a sense that we were being watched. But for me, as somebody who lives in New York, who returns to the United States between trips to Brazil, the danger to me is nothing compared to Bitate, Nadinia, and those people that are living there next to, in a lot of cases, the very same people that are invading this land.
If you could sit down with the leaders of Brazil, we're in the midst of an election cycle for the presidency. If you could just sit down face to face, what would you say to them about yourself, other indigenous people, and what's happening in the Amazon?
I would say that the government is not supporting the indigenous people. We see this so clearly. It should be supporting indigenous causes. It's actually killing the indigenous people. And I would say that the government needs to give us the opportunity to protect our territory. We need to strengthen the different organizations that protect the environment, the IBAMA, the FUNAI, because all of these organizations, these government organizations, have been gutted. Brazil's heart is indigenous. And the largest territories are indigenous territories. And yet we're not valued. This is an election year. So it's very tense for the environmentalists, for the activists, for the indigenous people. We think that the environmental issues are very critical. We're very tense. We're very nervous about it. And the Bolsonaro government has said that if they win again, they're going to make it very difficult for us. I hope he doesn't win. I hope that we can have another administration that we can talk to, we can dialogue with, so that we can address indigenous issues and improve our lot. But it is quite complicated. I hope that Bolsonaro doesn't win, because it's impossible to deal with this government. It's a true genocide against the indigenous people, especially during what we saw during the pandemic.
Concerning the Amazon, if nothing is done and it continues the way it is, what will happen to the world, essentially, in your mind?
Então, eu acho que se não proteger,
if we don't protect the Amazon, and if we don't protect the indigenous people, I don't know what it's going to be like in 50 years, but if it continues apace, the world's going to end. Growth is going to increase, the tensions are going to increase, poverty is going to increase. We already see this. We're seeing this everywhere throughout Brazil. We're seeing these high, extensive climate change. We're seeing flooding. We're seeing droughts. Without the Amazon, without Brazil, the world won't exist, because it's going to be catastrophic changes in the Amazon and in the world. Amazon protects everything. It's the barrier that protects the planet.
I'd like to thank you, Bitate and Alex. Thank you so much for coming on our show and expressing really powerful views about what's happening there in the Amazon.
Thank you so much.
The Brazilian government responded to accusations made in the film, saying the assertion that it allows unlawful deforestation and could be responsible for a genocide is preposterous. The Brazilian government reaffirms its commitment to protect the human rights of all Brazilians, including, of course, indigenous people. The Brazilian government is fully committed, it says, to reducing deforestation rates in Brazil, in particular in the Amazon. It says it's invested millions in the supervision of indigenous lands and increased the budget of enforcement agencies to protect the environment. When we come back, a legend in his field, we reflect on the life of an iconic war photographer.
This is an important message for everyone on Medicare.
I would like to weigh in on what she said. I don't think it's necessarily going to be the end of the world, but I would go as far to say that it's going to be the end of the world as we know it, towards the seasons, the cool dews at night, the adequate rains that come during the time whenever the farmers depend upon the rains to come. The normalcy of the ecosystem will change, and as it changes, it will also change the life here up onto the planet, regardless whether it be human life or animal life.
He would place the whole thing under seal to allow the Justice Department to appeal, in which case we won't see anything probably for some time. But I think you articulated in your open the most hopeful avenue for those of us who want more information about this case, which is it doesn't seem like it would impair the investigation for them to allow the exposure of the timeline here, to lay out all the efforts that the archives and the DOJ made, much of which has already been reported, but it would be nice to see it confirmed. But
I want to comment on this before I turn the telephone recorder off. I think it has reached a state with the Justice Department that they have come up onto a place in time in history to where it's damned if they do and damned if they don't. And of course, whenever you reach that state of your decision of whether or not it be on an individual level or a group, then is whenever one has to start weighing out towards which is the lesser of the two evils. In other words, what would it be worse in if we just left it alone and let things be like they are and just kind of take it on the cheek and go on? Or would this even give that many more people the ideals towards thinking that the Justice Department isn't willing to defend that in which what they know that is right, even at the expense of a prior president, in reprimanding this individual or individuals in the degree towards letting them know that they may have done it, but they're not going to do it and get away with it. In other words, it will be a powerful statement to the rest of the world, and those that think that they can pull something like this off again, that something like this will not be permitted, and there will be consequences in anybody else that thinks that they can do something like this and pull it off, and there not be troubling despair behind it. So sometimes looking at the lesser of the two evils, you have to weigh out which is the worst, towards leaving it alone or pursuing it. And obviously the Judicial Justice Department, pertaining to the unlawful taking 700 plus files that was considered not just classified, not just top secret, but top secret to the degree that certain of those files is never supposed to be removed from the White House. And of course, this morning I was hearing them talk about the love letters that they still haven't been able to come in contact with. Who knows? Donald Trump may have flushed them down the commode. Who knows? Donald Trump may have put them in the oven and burned them. I don't know. But according to what I was listening to this morning, they have still not found the love letters that the North Korean and Donald Trump was sharing with each other. And I still believe that it was North Korea that planted the coronavirus over in China to make it look like that it was China's carelessness that caused the COVID-19 to basically overwhelm the world in the way that it's overwhelmed the world. And that may have some sort of a bearing on the reason why that they can't find the letters. Is because there may be something indicating in those letters pertaining to the very thing that I just got through discussing. I don't know. I know this, that Kim Jong-un, or whatever his name is, he's been itching, or given the appearance of itching, towards wanting to start something in regards towards their military advanced propaganda, and also with their military basically provoking various other government agencies into some sort of a conflict. But the bottom line is this: it was Kim Jong-un that kept telling the Americans right before COVID hit that we have a Christmas present, we have a Christmas present, we have a Christmas present for the Americans. And of course it becomes so concerning with some of the stuff that he has done in the past. It actually brought a great deal of worrisome torturous nervous conditions that happened over in Hawaii by them thinking that whenever these missiles was launched from North Korea, that they could have actually had nukes on them. And they went into a severe nuclear countdown, a radiation type countdown, not knowing what Kim Jong-un was up to. And of course, whenever he kept talking about the Christmas present, we have a Christmas present, basically our national defense system was keeping a very, very close eye on him at the time, because they was not taking any chances towards not knowing what that he intended on doing, but telling everybody that he had this Christmas present of all these love letters that was sent to Donald Trump. I still think the Christmas present was COVID-19. I think North Korea knew about it. I think North Korea was part of it. And I think North Korea would probably die before they told the truth about it. You could probably hold them at gunpoint, and they would probably stand at an execution wall and be executed before they would admit that they took a part in planting the coronavirus, the pandemic that has now shaken the world the way that it has. But that was the first instincts that God told me about after all that had unfolded, that it was basically China whom had been played, or an entrapment technique that was played upon the China regarding that coronavirus. I might be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, but I could possibly be wrong. But even if it was done in China, let's say hypothetically that it was pertaining to the lab, do you really think anybody's going to admit up to any wrongdoing, regardless whether it was done intentional or non-intentional, pertaining to China and the lab over there? I kind of doubt it. I kind of doubt if they're going to own up and say, well, you know what, you got us. It was us. We was playing around with something one day, and one of our scientists dropped a glass experimental tube, and it hit the ground and it broke, and basically infected the whole corridor, and it reeked outside. Whenever it reeked outside, it done what it done, pertaining to killing millions and millions and millions of people's lives all over the world. And you know, even to this day, there's still people that don't believe that COVID is real. Even to this day, people don't believe that the environmental problems that the world is facing pertaining to environmental changes and atmospheric changes, they still don't believe that that's real. Of course, these are probably the same people that don't believe that Jesus Christ was God's only begotten Son, and don't believe that there's only one way to enter into heaven, which is through the obedience and the surrender of the Lord thy God pertaining to Jesus Christ. There's probably people to this day that will take that all the way to their graves before they admit anything any different, because that's the way they are. Good luck to each and every one of us as we want to end this program by saying thank you. Thank you for your prayers. Good luck to America. God bless America. God bless America's endeavors. God bless our troops, and good luck to each and every one of us as we go through these trying, disturbing, disorders that has now rattled the world in such of a way that, as I spoke of earlier, I don't know that we'll ever get out of it. The people down in South America, good luck to them, and shalom.